Rich, speaking of football,
Yeah.
your team, the 49ers. Your boy Ricky Pearsall's in the news today. Yesterday,
you know
and
who else is in the news?
Who?
The coaching staff, because
Saleh?
they bumped up Kubiak to the offensive coordinator, so Shanahan doesn't have it all on his plate anymore. And I'm all in favor of a Robert Saleh reunion. And sometimes you got to take a step backwards to take another step forward. And I don't know, unless the coaching opportunity is right, and who's to say he even gets a head coaching opportunity? When you go back to somewhere you were loved, like Robert Saleh was loved as the defensive coordinator of the 49ers. And coming off of 2 years where the Niners defense was a little suspect, you don't think the Bay Area and Niners Nation would welcome this guy with open arms? They loved Robert Saleh. So I wouldn't be shocked even a little bit.
Journey style. Steve Perry style.
Open arms.
That's right.
I'm telling you, I think that's the reunion waiting to happen. We shall see.
So, yeah, it's kind of like the theory of the arrow, Rich. You know the theory of the arrow? An arrow can only be shot by pulling it backward. So when life is dragging you back with difficulties, like Robert Saleh had, it means it's going to launch you into something better. So focus and keep on aiming.
Who sent you that meme? Your therapist?
Yeah, my therapist gave me that. So it's the truth in work and relationships.
It's true, though. Let's say hi to Andy in Puerto Rico, and then I got two quick thoughts, and we'll get to
Ricky Pearsall.
No, we'll get to all of it. What's up, man? Andy.
Hey, Paisano.
Oh.
How's it going, guys?
What's up, buddy?
I'm glad to hear that y'all are safe. Most of the U.S., they're either freezing their ass off or they're dealing with some type of, emergency situation like they are in California. But nonetheless, the way I look at it, maybe Brady's kind of just doing Belichick a favor, just kicking the tires on him just to see where he's at and kind of maybe put his name out there because, in a sense, with the clause that he has, it also could lead to other teams that already reported that they've reached out to him. So
it's the George Costanza hot woman theory, right? Remember George Costanza carried around the picture of a model, and when good-looking women got wind, like, wait, that's your ex? They were interested? Like, sometimes just putting someone's name in the mix gets other people being like, wait, what's going on?
And Tommy did that as a friend, maybe.
Yeah, but,
there's just lots of ways to look at this.
So you could look at it this way, you could look at it that way. But before you get to the Ricky Pearsall story, which very intriguing to me as a Niners fan, two quick thoughts. Number one, we've been talking about how the NBA has been lacking any real excitement as far as, it's all three-pointers. Danny G last night sent us two of the sickest dunks we've seen in years. And I'm going to tell you right now, the LeBron pump fake left-handed windmill? How on earth can a 40-year-old guy do that?
That reverse windmill, I had to watch it again. I thought somebody did a fake video. It didn't look real the first time I watched it.
Dude,
how could a dude that old stay in the air that long?
Reversed, switched hands, left-handed windmill. Unbelievable. So watching some of these guys take it to the hoop, and there was another one.
Kobe White of the Bulls.
Kobe White.
Dunked on Wemby.
And that hair.
In the picture, the still shot I sent you guys it should be a poster. He did Wemby, and then you see how the air he gets, like it's half of Wemby's body.
And the bragging right to dunk over Wemby these days, who is really Danny, I remember when you saw him as tall as a damn giraffe in Vegas at NBA Con.
That's right.
Before he even made his debut in the NBA. Has that guy emerged rather quickly? Like, he's a top 5 MVP candidate so far, and they're showing his early numbers in his career compared to the other NBA greats, and he is matching up with everyone.
Props to him.
So props to Wemby. And before we get to Pearsall, I know, Covino, you're a guy that loves numbers, like coincidences. Like, can you believe this guy batted the same batting average like 3 years in a row? And there's all these weird things like, Joey Votto never hit a foul ball. Get this. They're saying everyone knows the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl this year. You know why?
Why?
Every 12 years, the Ravens win a Super Bowl with a different quarterback who's 28 years old, and they score 34 points. In 2001, Dilfer was 28. They won 34-7. In 2013, Joey Flacco was 28. They won 34-31. So the question is, this year, Lamar Jackson, who just turned 28, who are they going to beat 34?
Wow.
So
I like it.
A lot of just coincidence.
I like it. That's like almost as cool as the JFK Abraham Lincoln one.
Or the Joe Theismann, Alex Smith.
That's a good one, too, yeah. I love that. That's great. So back to football, Ricky Pearsall. This is an interesting story because he's saying, if you remember, his season started crazy and ended kind of crazy. Dude's wearing a Rolex, gets shot by a teenager for his watch.
Yeah.
That was the story. You're like, what? Yeah. A 17-year-old approached, I think he's 23, right? Ricky Pearsall, with all the promise in the world, shoots him for his watch, sidelines him, but, we were thankful that he was alive. And now the story today is, or actually yesterday, but we got a little more out of it today, was that he wants to forgive and move on. He wants to forgive this kid who shot him this past summer and move on. Pearsall says, I don't know how he grew up, so I can't judge him as a man. I have to forgive him to lift that weight off my chest. If I can impact him in any way, I'd be open to it. So it's a really big gesture. It's a really cool story.
Says he's open to sitting down with the kid.
Doesn't owe that kid a damn thing. But I guess, again, if he wants to do something that helps him move on, he has all the right in the world to do that. And by doing that, if he helps some kid out that may be misguided, then I guess it's a win-win. But it takes a really big person to think that way. So props to him.
All the things you're talking about are way more important than on-the-field stuff. His life, a possible tragedy that luckily
he ended great.
But talk about a guy like, if you followed, I know the Niners were sort of playing out the season and they had injuries, but Ricky Pearsall, after the injury, never really got in his groove. And you're like, was Shanahan's, soft launching this guy? Because Niners fans thought that Ricky Pearsall would be a bigger part of what they were doing. The last month of the season, you get the feeling that he is going to be a big part of what Kyle Shanahan does moving forward. So the kid's got a lot of promise. And based on what you're saying with the more important stuff off the field, in life, if someone does you dirty in a relationship, God forbid someone hurt a family member of yours.
Or hurt you.
Are you one of those type of people that seek out, like, I want to see them. I want to close this chapter. I need an apology, or I need to get it off my chest. Like,
we saw this awkwardly happen recently. Again, not on the same level as a life or death situation with Pearsall, but we saw it with Gastineau when he wanted to confront Brett Favre and talk about how hurt he was. You hurt me, Brett.
You hurt me, Brett.
Brett was
That's
like,
my
what?
sack. I'm going to sack you. What do you mean?
Again, I don't think I've ever been, and maybe it's a self-defensive mechanism of sorts. I don't think I've ever been hurt enough where I had the need to confront somebody to let them know.
Have you ever?
But I would imagine it's a major part of closure in therapy. I bet you every therapist would tell you, yeah, you're holding on to a lot, and you should probably let it go. And it's probably in Pearsall's best interest to let this go.
I think so. I mean, I can think of real life and fictional scenarios. But
I've never been there.
You've never reached out to like an ex or someone you knew back in the day and like, yeah, listen, I want to let you know that I'm sorry for how things went down. You've never reached out to someone in your past and said, I could have handled that better?
That's flip side, though. That's also flip side. I've never went to somebody to let them know they hurt me. I don't know if I've ever or never been hurt that much where I needed that, but I've never done that. Hey, I'm not saying it's wrong if you do. I'm just telling you I personally never did that.
I'm saying I've been on the receiving end of people reaching out to me like, hey, I'm sorry about what I did to you back then. And even you might be like, yeah, no big deal, man. But they might be trying to get their own closure.
Yeah, I've been there before.
And, maybe that's sometimes people going through recovery, you'll get a message from like, yeah, dude, sorry, back in the day. And you're like, dude, we're fine. And, he's just going or she's going through their process.
Yeah, so maybe you need that is the point, right? Maybe it works for some, not for everybody. But I would imagine that's a therapeutic sort of thing. And like Ricky says, it's a weight lifted off his chest, something serious that he dealt with. He wants to forgive the kid that shot him. He wants to confront him. And in turn, maybe help this kid. Who knows? It might be a great story.
I have a question, because I want to take this way extreme on both ends.
Sure.
Ricky Pearsall almost lost his life. He was laying in the arms of a female officer in the Bay Area, and she assured him, you're not going to die. This was not a small-time story.
Yeah, you remember, he asked her, am I going to die today?
Yeah, that was so scary.
And so this is a guy who thought this is all over. 23-year-old young man about to be in the NFL wants to confront and talk to the guy that shot him. He wants to
forgive and move on.
Forgive and close this chapter. I'm going to give you a really light scenario and the heaviest of scenarios and tell me if that changes your feelings. Danny, you and I both watched the show Shrinking. I don't want to give away too many plot points, but I mean, it's the whole premise of the show. Jason Segel lost his wife in a drunk driving accident. God forbid someone you know, their life was taken by someone else's terrible judgment. Do you ever want to come face to face with that person?
Yeah, it's a big part of the series.
If like one of your college buds, God forbid, lost his life due to an accident.
See, I can't
Would you want to be
answer
like,
that,
you the guy you took my friend's life? Like,
yeah, I don't ever want to know if I could answer that because who wants to be in that situation,
now,
right?
Then let's go light. Let's say you were in college or in your 20s and you were a dumb kid. Like one of your buddies hooked up with a girl you were interested in. Years later, if he's like, yeah, dude, our friendship was never the same after I, banged the girl you liked. Would you be like, yeah, who cares? Would you be okay with someone wanting closure or something like that?
You hurt me, dude. Yeah, I didn't know, man. I just couldn't control myself, and she was really hot. Yeah, but you hurt me. Yeah, you know what?
You have a family member that went through this where, like, there was, like, they hooked up with someone's ex, and it was like, can't believe you did that. Like,
it just depends who that person is. Because let's say I did have a friend that hooked up with a girlfriend of mine, right? I could have wrote that friend off and never looked back and couldn't care less. So I got this guy years later trying to apologize to me, and now I'm indifferent. Like, yeah, I don't care. You lost a friend. Beat it. That's life.
All right, so Pearsall.
So it just depends who that person is, what the situation is. Forgiveness is always a good thing, though. Moving forward, always a good thing. And based on that, I do want to pose this question, so don't forget your thought. Are there other players and coaches you never forgave?
That's a very petty fan thing, but I like the question.
You hurt me.
Dan Byer never forgave Pete Carroll for not running with Marshawn Lynch.
In other words,
I never forgave him.
He never forgave Bo Jackson for running all over the Seahawks.
Yeah, do you want to confront him, Dan, and tell him
that was a
he hurt
myth,
you?
by the way? All Bo Jackson had was leverage at the goal line, and that's all that it was.
No, I mean up the sideline into the tunnel.
Like, if you were to see Pete Carroll, Dan Byer, is there a party that's like, why didn't you run the ball? Or are you like,
You hurt me, Pete.
You hurt me.
You know what a conscious person does, though? They already know that Pete Carroll has thought about that thousands of times and just lets it go.
Yeah.
Like, then you're making it about yourself. It's like Pete Carroll already took the heat from everybody over that. Let the guy live.
There wouldn't be one Super Bowl, right? I mean, still it hurts me to this day to see it and to have that empty feeling, but I couldn't get to the point of blaming someone and not forgiving them.
See, he's not over it. It didn't sound like he's over it at all.
I'm not over it.
Yeah.
But I don't blame. I can't. There's plays I think that we all have.
You know what I thought?
You'd never get over.
You know what I thought, Dan Byer, and this always bothered me because I know that when he was alive, he was known as a great man. The way the Red Sox treated poor Bill Buckner for all those years until they finally won a championship. Red Sox fans, remember there was an episode with Larry David on Curb, and it was like, dude.
So unfair. Mental errors.
Never
and
forgive
mental
him.
decisions and bad decisions and mental errors really bother me a lot more than a physical error. That's like me hating Aaron Judge still because he dropped the ball, right? Buckner didn't lose the World Series. And he got so much hate.
And by the way,
that.
you were down 3-1 in the World Series. If that was Game 7 and Aaron Judge dropped that in like the 8th inning, that's a different story.
But still, a physical error doesn't, although it hurts my feelings, it doesn't make me hate the guy. Like, if I wanted to play this game of players or coaches that I'll never forgive or haven't forgiven yet, I'd have to have Robbie Cano up there because he just disappointed me. Like, you disappointed me, Robbie. You hurt me, Robbie. You could have been the next great Yankee. I would confront him. You went for the money, Seattle, Cano, seriously? And then you ended up on the SpongeBob SquarePants team. Now you're playing in Mexico. Robbie, you could have been a great one. You hurt me, man.
How about an extension of your players? Do you have hard feelings towards Fat Joe?
That's a good one. You know what? I really don't. I feel bad for Fat Joe a little bit, that he's associated with that whole thing. Juan Soto, I don't forgive him. I'm like, Juan, you big fatso, have fun at the Shake Shack at Citi Field, you loser. I'm so angry about it. You hurt me, man. You hurt me, bro.
I love how much of a little
you
love how much a little biatch you sound
But
like.
now, speaking of forgiveness, right?
Cry about it.
Your boy Pearsall's choosing to forgive the kid that shot him.
Flip it.
Hold on. I'm going to have to forgive Garrett Cole for his lazy mental error. I'm going to have to because he's still pitching with the Yankees. I have to find it in my heart to be like, dude, you blew it.
Flip it.
But I forgive you.
We're looking at it from the one side. Just to match it up, we said Pearsall's the guy that wants to touch base with this kid and be like, yo, I need closure.
Yeah, because that kid hurt him.
But what if the kid was like, I was a troubled kid. I need closure. Ricky Pearsall, will you talk to me? Does Pearsall owe it to that kid?
Hell no. He doesn't owe that. He doesn't owe anything to that kid. He's a bigger person if he chooses to do that. No way.
Know what I find always so heartfelt, yet I don't think I could ever get there, and I'm at least I'm man enough to admit it. If someone ever hurt someone close to me, you ever seen like a courtroom, there'll be like a murderer, and the family's like, we've forgiven him. It's like, F that. You would never be able to forgive a murderer.
I commend you if you are big enough to do that, but I don't think that's for everybody.
No, you've just turned to faith and you're letting something else take over because there's no way.
I would also say that if you have real grudges in your life, sports grudges are nothing.
That is true.
Without
you
a doubt.
kidding.
Yeah, there's the real situation, life or death, like we said,
Yeah.
and then there's like this that we're talking about, right? So that's why I'm telling you, Rich, I've never been in a situation where I felt the need to tell someone how much they hurt me. Luckily, to this point, I haven't been hurt on that type of level where I needed that type of closure.
Sports grudges are silly, but so many fans have them.
Yeah.
How about like fantasy football players? There's that one guy that like slides down right before the 1 yard line.
Yes.
And forever, I have friends where they're like, I hate that guy.
You hurt me, man. I could have won thousands.
What was it? Portnoy at Barstool, he did some player prop parlay a couple weeks ago. And who's the running back on the Washington Commanders? Robinson?
Brian Robinson?
Brian,
Yeah. He needed him to score a touchdown, and like apparently Portnoy and like millions of his Barstool people did the same player prop, and it was like plus 1,200.
So Portnoy
And,
would have to go to
he
him.
did a rant, and he's like, I'll never forgive this guy.
Portnoy would have to go to say, hey, listen, Robinson, you hurt me. And Robinson would have to then try to ask for free. Hey, man, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
And the full circle, Brian Robinson was shot prior to the season a couple of years ago.
good point.
Remember, missed a couple of games and then came back and
Full
returned.
circle.
Man,
Look at that.
That is full circle. So other players or coaches, maybe there's moments that you just haven't forgiven. Do you believe in forgive and forget? Move on. Hey, get it off your chest like Pearsall. Maybe it's time to forgive here on the show.